Good afternoon, Hit Play Nation.
Yeah, you did it.
It's your boys back again with another episode. This time we are finishing our rewatch of Paul Thomas Anderson in anticipation for Licorice Pizza, which unfortunately decided not to go wide release when we thought it would.
When we thought it would, yeah.
So we will have to wait for that review. But nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and finish this off. Inherent Vice and Phantom Thread.
We're not doing the documentary that he did. He did a documentary in between
Correct.
the two of them. Yeah.
It was
June.
There you go. That sounds right.
Yep.
Yeah. So no documentary talk here right now. But Inherent Vice, Phantom Thread, both movies that we had not seen prior to this. And I'm curious to know what did you think you were going to get into watching these two movies?
So with Inherent Vice, I had an idea what I was going to get into anyway. Only because it is based on a book by an author named Thomas Pynchon, who... You know this because I stood in front of you for an hour and I lectured you on Thomas Pynchon.
I got a Khan Academy crash course mismatch from James.
So I knew what to expect beforehand, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
With Phantom Thread, I didn't know what to expect because by the time that movie came out, it was like I hadn't seen Inherent Vice the year before. I actually had seen The Master, but... I don't know. I just wasn't that interested in seeing it, I guess.
Got a lot of Oscar love.
It did. I don't know what about the movie just didn't interest me, but maybe it was just the style, the time period, what I could ascertain from the trailers, but I just didn't go see it, and it didn't interest me. Like, I didn't feel compelled to see it since then.
Mm-hmm.
So I really had no expectations going into that one, other than the cinematography. But that was it. So what did you think going into these movies? Did anything I tell you about Inherent Vice beforehand help?
Yes and no. I still didn't know what was happening, but you also warned me that Thomas Pynchon is notoriously just kind of everywhere with his writing. So it kind of helped to be like, all right, I don't know what's happening, but I will not freak out over it.
There you go.
With Phantom Thread, I was expecting Oscar bait because it was kind of Oscar bait. I mean, it got a lot of awards.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to say that in a derogatory term per se.
I think it's Oscar bait because even before it was released, Daniel Day-Lewis said it was going to be his last movie.
Yeah.
And I think that in and of itself generated the quote-unquote,
Oscar
this
bait.
is Oscar bait attitude towards it. Even though when you watch the movie, it's not like Oscar bait.
Yeah, that's why I say I'm reluctant to say it's Oscar bait because it's not the typical Oscar bait movie we get in January, December. But it's still, like, I was expecting it to not be top tier quality art per se. And I was pleasantly surprised when it was. But anyways, yeah, let's start with Inherent Vice.
Inherent Vice. What did you think of this movie?
I don't know what to think of this movie. It's a mess.
In a bad way?
No. It's like it's everywhere and it's all at once and there's multiple subplots going on. And there's characters you don't even know the names of. And there's characters that may or may not be even real. It's kind of just left up to our imagination.
I warned you about that beforehand. I was like, Thomas Pynchon gives his characters weird names.
Yeah.
Could you even... Other than the main character who just goes by Doc.
Josh Brolin's character goes by...
he goes by Bigfoot.
There you go. Yeah.
But do you remember what his name was?
No. No, not at all. Yeah, this was interesting. This was...
Well, generally, what was one element of the film that you liked?
I mean, I like the acting. I think Brolin... I am on the record saying that having foils as your two leads is...
Smart.
It's often cliche, but it's cliche because it works, especially when it's done very right. So having a hippie private detective and a straight edge cop
Yeah.
who were high school buddies, I think, at one point. I think it's alluded to at one point. And they have history and they're very much different from one another. I think that works very well.
Mm-hmm.
It also works very well because Walking Phoenix is a interesting fellow, especially with the roles he takes. And
Yeah.
Josh Brolin's kind of just like the guy's guy. He's
Josh-
like Giga Chad.
It's like Josh Brolin naturally looks very like straight edge and
Yeah.
clean cut, and
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix naturally looks like a sleazebag.
Yeah. Like if Walking Phoenix walked in right now, you could probably say he's a hobo. Just some of the hairstyles that man does.
I know.
Yeah, I thought that acting was good. There was a surprise Owen Wilson cameo that I was like, wow.
You didn't know that beforehand?
No, I didn't know anything about this movie
Nice.
beforehand.
There was
So,
for me a nice surprise. Reese Witherspoon.
yeah, there was a
Her
good Reese
appearance.
Witherspoon performance.
It's like a
Benicio del Toro playing
it's-
the dumbass lawyer.
It's like a subtle ensemble cast.
Yeah. Maya Rudolph has like 2 scenes.
Yeah.
And I laughed. I was like, oh, of course Maya Rudolph is
Yeah,
in the
that's
movie.
the Tim Burton, Helen Botman
Yeah,
comment, or whatever
yeah.
her name is. I have no idea what her name is.
I will say that had it going for it. As far as everything else, I mean, it's a PTA movie, so it's going to be shot really well. Robert Elswit is the cinematographer on this one, so you know it's going to be shot pretty good. I don't know. Other than that,
The plot.
I don't know. I wasn't really feeling it.
Was it like just engaging because you didn't know what was going on, or was it just boring because of
Yeah,
that?
no, it was engaging because it was boring. I mean, not boring. It was, I didn't know what was going on, so it was like,
Yeah.
what is going to happen next?
Mm.
And it just, I don't know. I find it very hard to care for any of the other characters other than Doc and Bigfoot.
Understandable. Yeah.
Like I enjoyed that dynamic between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, I was just kind of like, why?
Yeah.
To a degree, why do I care?
Like even the I don't know, that's an element of detective stories, noir detective stories, just inherently, is that the actual plot is just a vehicle for the character
Yeah.
issues. Like that's just writing 101 really. So like not being interested in what the mystery he's trying to solve is just, you're not supposed to be interested in it. You're
Yeah.
supposed to be interested in
The characters.
the character and
Yeah.
what he has to go through to solve it. So that's understandable, especially because the only downside to that is that when the characters involved are like, you know, ex-lovers or, you know, there's-
Ex-friends.
yeah. Or it's worse where it's like there's interesting elements to the characters.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he's going after a Jewish guy who is friends with the Aryan Brotherhood. I'm like,
That's an
would you
oxymoron.
would you like to know more about that? Well, you're not going to learn about that.
Yeah.
You're just going to get these hints of the Aryan Brotherhood characters throughout, but you're not going to know anything about anyone.
And there's also, he's trying to solve 3 different cases at once.
Yeah.
And they somehow tie together. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, I'm assuming it's the source materials problem more than the screenplays, but it's very hard to pull that off in film, especially if you're doing the same
Yeah.
character, trying to solve 3 different things. And I don't know. I thought it was too much of a mess. If it would have just focused on like 1 or 2 of them, we could have had a more, I guess, simplistic storyline and more concise narrative. But with the 3, I don't even know if it's actually 3. It felt like 3. It felt like 6. I just felt like there was a lot going on for it as far as me.
That's understandable. I think a lot of it too is just the nature of Pynchon and how he writes himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is just, it's like one thing will both evolve and also devolve at the same time into like a whole other narrative, but like you're not supposed to pay attention to what the narrative itself is. It's supposed to be about like, you know, was it analogous to in real life or something like that.
Yeah.
And then how he writes on top of that, the way he's writing is all of the wordplay and like weird plays on language, like how one thing will represent different things to different characters. How Golden Fang is both a boat and a dental association and a drug cartel, all the 3 different people. And it's like, that's probably why you felt really confused about what he was trying to solve. Which I'll only say in book form, I think it works pretty well.
Yeah.
In movie form, I mean, just the nature of making an adaptation
Is difficult.
you're not getting the whole picture of what you're supposed
What's
to get
going
out
on.
of it. Yeah. So I think it's serviceable, but I'll definitely admit I think in terms of plot, even trying to stay engaged, because I think I followed along pretty well, at least insofar as when I was done watching the movie, and then I read a summary of it, I was like, yeah, I remember all of this. I mean, there were just, in terms of pacing, it was long. It was a long
150
movie.
minutes, so that's 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I felt like we could have cut 15 minutes out of that.
I took a nap in the middle of this movie. I paused it and I fell asleep. And
You're
when
not
I
a
woke
true
back up,
film
I finished
bro.
it.
You take naps in the middle of your movies.
I was tired.
No, but that's fair. It's
It also didn't help that like every character whispered.
There was you know what? Now that you mentioned that, there is a scene when the girl that he's hallucinating about pops up. Which is she a real person? She's not, right? It's just a dream of his.
Is it?
Anyways,
The point is that not that there's an answer. The point is what it tells you about the character.
Okay. Anyways, the person that may or may not
be real.
actually exist,
She
comes out,
ex-old girlfriend.
and there's like a 15-minute scene with them talking. It felt like 15 minutes. It was so goddamn long. But it's a one shot, and it's like,
There's a lot of those too.
can we keep this moving? Like,
Yeah.
why is this a thing? There's
For
scenes
me-
like that where it's two characters talking and they're expo dumping.
For me, it was the scene where he meets Owen Wilson in the basement of the party.
See, I don't even
And
remember that.
it's all one shot, and it's just a push-in on the two of them talking.
Oh, I remember.
The issue for me with that scene was not just that they were expo dumping, but that they were whispering the entire time.
I
And it
remember
was
that
like
scene.
I was trying to listen, but also trying to catch what they were saying
Yeah.
and like process what they were saying. But I was so tired. That was when I paused it and went to bed. And then I came back.
Yeah,
and I was
there's
like,
just
okay,
a lot
I
of
can watch this now.
There's too many scenes where it drags on for 2 minutes
Yeah.
longer than it needed to.
And the way that the exposition works in this movie is that it's all like it's like the thing in science fiction where characters will just say things and not explain it to you. He does that, but like in real life, where they mention people, and you're not given an explanation to anything, and it's like, I don't know.
There's too much going on.
For me, the big plus in this movie is the music. I thought the music in this was a lot different from other Paul Thomas Anderson movies.
Yeah.
This and Phantom Thread both, really.
Mm-hmm.
That to me was a big plus.
Johnny Greenwood again.
He does all of his movies now. He does Phantom Thread too.
Yeah.
But the music for me definitely was a big plus. And I think also just being a literature nerd, just having anything to do with Thomas Pynchon was interesting enough. Because then that like kept me engaged, because now I was like, well, how well are they adapting a Pynchon work? You know, I'm looking out for. Are there any techniques they use that are similar to what he might do in a book?
Would you say it's a good Pynchon adaptation?
Like I said, it's serviceable. It's at least the fact that it confuses 90% of people who watch it is the most they could ever hope to accomplish, for sure.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, Inherent Vice is one of the most accessible Pynchon books you could read. This is the low bar for him.
Oh, jeez. Okay,
Yeah.
It was nominated for 2 Academy Awards and Best Actor, Motion Picture, and Musical Comedy at the Golden Globes.
But it didn't win.
But it didn't win anything. Let's see. What awards was it nominated for at the Academy? They don't want to say on IMDb. There you go. Screenplay, which makes sense.
Adapted
Costume
screenplay
design
makes
makes sense as well because it's a period piece.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's seems about right.
For sure.
Is Paul Thomas Anderson just going to be nominated for Best Screenplay to the day he dies?
Yeah.
Is he in the Tarantino boat at this point?
Yeah, most likely. So, I mean, I don't know.
Was a
This-
huge bomb, by the way, at the box office.
Understandable to a degree. I think, honestly, Paul Thomas Anderson, even at this point in his career, he's just making whatever he wants.
Oh yeah.
He just has the freedom to do what he wants at this point, and they're just giving it to him. It's really not that much about the. I think we said
Trying
this
to make
last time
money.
when we were talking about the master.
Mhm.
It's not about the. It's maybe for once it's not about the money, and it's actually just about the artistry of it. I think for me the biggest issue with this movie though is that just so much about like how do I want to say this? The plot of this movie takes so much precedence over everything else, both during the movie and beforehand and after it. Like, you go into this movie knowing you're not going to understand into it.
Yeah.
You watch it not understanding anything, and then you get out of it not understanding anything. And that takes so much precedence over the costumes, the cinematography, the music, even the acting to some degree. That is interesting to most people. It doesn't have that, like, I don't know. Most people would probably want to watch a movie, and if they can't follow the plot, they would want to look at the costumes, or they would want to listen to the music, or they would want to enjoy the acting. But in this movie, I think so much of it, for most people who aren't already into these kinds of movies, it's just not going to do it for them.
No, I would agree.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest watch, and
I would
I don't know.
put
Do
it
we-
in like a B minus.
I think I would put it. I think I'd put it in a C.
I
It
can see that.
just, while I was entertained and I enjoyed it, and I think I've said this about PTA movies, numerous of them. It just didn't do it for me as far as like wanting to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
Especially because I didn't know what the hell was going on. I'm sure now that I know what's going on, I'd probably be more inclined to be
I don't know.
into it, but it's also a 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah.
So
for
it's
sure.
kind of a hard sell, especially about a,
Mm-hmm. For me, it was just one of those things that it was like, that was cool to see.
Yeah.
That was about all I felt
Yeah.
about it.
It was worth the $3 on Amazon
On Amazon?
to
Yeah.
rent it.
Just to rent it for a
to
day.
rent it.
What can you do?
Cool.
Now,
Any less?
there are some cast members who were, I don't know, it was weird. The cast for this movie was like both big list actors and also like little unknown people. Like the ex-old girl character, who this was like one of her first big movies.
Which girl?
And then the Shasta, if you remember her name.
You gotta give me like
The girlfriend, the illusion.
Catherine Waterston.
Yeah. There's her, and then
She's been in something before.
what does it say?
You know what she's been in? She's been in Jobs, I think. Yeah, Steve Jobs.
Steve
She
Jobs?
was Steve Jobs' baby mama.
That came out after Inherent Vice, though.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm reading backwards. Okay, yeah. So before this,
What had she been in?
she was in
not
the-
much. Yeah,
not much.
I thought she was okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the role in the film is to be a dream, an illusion, not to actually like
Be real.
have character development.
Yeah.
So, what somebody can do with that character is really just maybe that's like the bare minimum of what you should be able to do, you know. And then there were so many times where a character would pop up just to do one or two things, like Martin Short.
Yeah.
He's the dentist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's an interesting character, but like, what,
It's all these guys just wanting to be in Paul Thomas Anderson
maybe, yeah.
movies.
That's just what he's turned into. He's turned into that kind of director.
Or it's just like, I just want to be in it for 20 minutes
Yeah,
to say that
pretty
I was
much.
in it. Robert Downey Jr. was interested in the role, but he dropped out to do... Or no, he had dropped out of Oz.
What are you trying to read? Dude, there were...
Downey Jr. had ultimately
Tell me I was
passed on
not
the role.
crazy because there were so many times where Joaquin Phoenix just looked like Robert Downey Jr. in this movie.
Yeah. Downey Jr. definitely could have played it off.
Oh, yeah. Well, what can you do? So that would be, if I was going to recommend this movie to somebody, I would say either have read the book or just be a fan of Paul Thomas Anderson. That's what I would say.
Brolin confirms that Pinchon is in a cameo, and he was on set, but that nobody knows it was him.
Well, he knows it was him.
Yeah, but nobody on set actually knew that was Thomas Pynchon.
I tried looking for him.
Because nobody knows what he looks like.
To a degree. I remember a long time ago, there's a scene where he visits a mental institute, and they're watching a movie. And one of the extras during that scene maybe was Pynchon himself, but I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, on one hand, it would be cool to like see him in something. On the other hand, I guess respect his privacy. He's been on The Simpsons.
Part of his mystique is that nobody knows what he looks like.
Him and people know what Cormac McCarthy looks like. He doesn't do anything. He was one interview and it's with Oprah.
He just chills.
Yeah.
6.7 on IMDb, which makes sense.
Understandable.
I think his lowest actually, which 81 on Metacritic though. So critics loved it. The regular folk did not. The polls. What do they call them in 1984? Polls.
I've never read
the regular everyday people. All right. Anything last words for about this movie?
Watch it if you're a Paul Thomas Anderson fan or a Pynchon fan. Other than that, you can skip it. That's what I would say. What about you?
Yeah. It's. The problem is it's not really his strongest work, so I don't even know. If you're like a super mega nerdy fan, sure, but I mean, I don't know if I could recommend this in good faith, unless you're just bored and it's on Amazon or Netflix for free, and you're interested in watching Joaquin Phoenix play a hippie.
This is one of those movies where it was like, when it came out, there was a certain type of film fan who thought that this was like the greatest movie of the year.
It's in a lot of people's top 10s.
And then from every year since then, nobody has talked about it. Nobody has mentioned it. Nobody looks back
it's like,
on it. There's examples of movies like
there's
that.
multiple examples of movies.
The Ex Machina of 2014.
It's like freaking Lion.
Yeah.
Remember when Lion was a big thing in 2016 or whatever? And everybody's
Yeah,
like, go watch
that.
Lion. And then nobody ever talks about Lion ever again. I
What
don't
can
know.
you
That's
do?
the first movie that came to my head. All right. Phantom Thread. Let's get
Fandom
it.
Thread.
It's Paul Thomas Anderson, obviously. Daniel Day-Lewis in his reported final film. Leslie Manville, Vicky Creeps. We mentioned a Oscar buzz behind it, and it had a buttload of Oscar noms, which included Best Picture, nominated Best Director, Actor, Supporting Actress, Original Score, and one for Best Costume Design.
No Best Cinematography?
No Best Cinematography. No Best Actor win for Daniel Day-Lewis, which is interesting. I think that breaks his streak.
Wasn't transformative enough. He should have gained weight.
All he did was just get skinnier and look older.
And then just use his normal accent.
He fast-forwarded. So for reference, that was the year that Guillermo del Toro killed The Shape of Water. It was The Shape of Water, Get Out, Greta
He was up
Gerwig.
against freaking Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. He wasn't winning that.
Timothy Chalamet. I mean, come on, guys. Timothy Chalamet. Are we sure he even finished second? Daniel Kaluuya, Denzel. It was that year. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Dunkirk, Tanya. You guys know
Gary
that
Oldman
year.
deserved
Just
to
for a
win that.
reference of, why we mentioned it.
Gary
The
Oldman
Oscar.
deserved to win that for sure.
When,
suit.
when you put on so many pounds of
I know.
risking lung cancer.
Crazy.
All right, let's get into it. I like this movie.
I didn't.
I like this movie a lot, surprisingly. I thought I wouldn't.
I had the opposite reaction. I thought I would, and I didn't.
It was really interesting to see Daniel Day-Lewis play a guy cut from the same cloth as Daniel Plainview, and yet completely different, because Daniel Plainview's ruthless and aggressive, and whatever the heck.
This guy was just
Reynolds
high-strung.
Woodcock is high strung and just he's got a like sophistication to him.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the Leslie Manville character, Cyril, as like kind of the
She's kind
she's
of
like
a
the
foil
mom.
to him. She's
What?
kind of a foil to him.
yeah, where he's very high strung and she's mellow and
She's grounded,
you
stable,
need to chill.
emotionally stable.
She's a good
compared to
anchor.
him.
Yeah, she's a good anchor for him.
Mhm.
The Vicky Creeps character, Creeps,
Alma.
Alma.
She's the main character.
Not as much. Didn't enjoy her as much. Yeah, what didn't you like about this movie? Well, let me ask you: do you agree with my assessment of the three main characters?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, for me, it was just interesting to watch Daniel Day-Lewis play basically just a British guy, which him being a character actor, you know.
Does he really even go into character?
I know, right? He just plays a tall, skinny old British guy.
Pretty sure he's Irish, so it's like semi-character. Yeah, he's British-Irish,
He's born in England. Anyway,
but he has citizenship in Ireland.
you can have citizenship in Ireland.
He
not
lives
be
in
from there.
Ireland.
Well, yeah, if you were English, you wouldn't want to live in England either.
Anyway,
Freaking, yeah, I'd say I felt, well, I don't know. It's tough because it's one of those things where I can't tell if a character is written to be a certain way or if the actor is just performing them that way. And that's how I felt about the Alma character. It was like she would do things that like a serial killer would do, but she was characterized as like almost being like a wimp.
yeah, she starts out really weak, and then she starts out like gaining women empowerment, and then she goes back to being weak, and then she is empowered by the end of the movie again.
Yeah.
It's like, what made you become empowered in the first place?
Well, not only that, well, it's one of those things where it's like I know what does that, where that turning point is. I just couldn't shake the performance of her from the actress. Maybe it was her accent.
It might have been her accent.
I couldn't tell if she was supposed to be British or if she was supposed to be like something else, like French or Polish or
I
something.
think she's French.
Okay. She introduces herself in French at one
She's
point.
Luxembourgian. She's born in Luxembourg.
Oh, wow, really? People are born in Luxembourg?
That's a thing?
But yeah, that was just my gripe, where there was just something about her character. I couldn't put my finger on it. Was it just the way she was written, where her motivation,
Performance or
just-
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Or
I
was
agree
it
with
the
that.
performance? I couldn't tell.
She's definitely the weakest of the three characters.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, it's one of those things too, where like the Daniel Day-Lewis character, he's high strung, and so there are moments where he just flips out. That's like super inconsequential, and it's like,
the breakfast scene.
yeah, the breakfast scene, just any scene involving food throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, at least that it's consistent throughout the movie. With the Alma character, it didn't feel consistent.
Yeah.
There were moments where the Daniel Day-Lewis character would slight her in some way, and it would get on her nerves.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were other times where he would say something to her or be rude to her, and she would just take it at face value. And it didn't feel as consistent, I think. I don't
It's
know.
like, what bothers her is what we need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, they set it up as she wants his attention alone.
Right.
Because anytime another character is in the room with them, she becomes incredibly annoyed and physically irritated.
Jealous, yeah.
And jealous. But then that's not like super consistent throughout the movie, because she has to eat breakfast with one other person every day, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a through line, and it was her character motivation. And I can look at the movie, and there are points where I can point it out and say that exists. She wants his attention, and she's jealous of other people who just look in his direction. But it didn't feel consistent throughout the movie. It didn't actually feel like motivation.
Sure. But what is her motivation? Like,
yeah, it's like she
that's the
wants to
problem
be
with her
alone
main-
with
that's the
him,
main
but that
problem
didn't
with her
even feel like
character.
motivation.
There's no motivation. Like for Daniel, it's for Daniel. For Woodcock, it's I want to be the best dressmaker on the world, and I'll if anybody tries to bother me in any way, like just get out of my face, which she does to him, or he does to her multiple times throughout the movie. With her, it's like, does she want love? Does she want fame? Does she want a pretty dress? What does she want out of this relationship? And it seems inconsistent multiple times, like you said, throughout the movie. So it's kind of...
And this movie certainly throws interesting elements of characterization, mostly at Woodcock. For instance, his whole thing with ghosts and his mother. That element of his character I thought was super interesting. And I was super glad when Paul Thomas Anderson actually went deeper into that and explored it, where he starts seeing like hallucinations of his mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what you're supposed to do. So that to me was like, that's probably why his character stands out as the strongest one, in my opinion. It's because we just understand more of his mental acuities.
Which is interesting because he's not really the main character.
Not really the main character, no.
She's the main character. I mean, I think she takes up most of the screen time, which is weird because we don't see her till like 15 minutes into the movie anyways, and she ends up dominating most of it.
What can you do?
So, I will say one thing I really, really, really did like about this movie was just the sound design.
The sound,
For 1950s, it's one thing to omit like creaking floors, creaking steps, shoes on wood, old china sets moving around, teapots moving around, stuff like that. It's very, if you were to omit stuff like that, I don't think anybody would fault you.
I don't think most people would know this.
And most people wouldn't even notice. But that was like the first thing that noticed to me was how much
I noticed
highlighted it was with whether it was Paul Thomas Anderson or it was, his sound designer.
I actually think it's Paul Thomas Anderson because he does the same thing in Inherent Vice. There are multiple scenes in Inherent Vice where people are talking, and then you can very clearly hear a plane fly overhead, and you're like, that has to be intentional. He has to be doing it on the purpose. Or like a boat or a foghorn would go off in the distance, and I'm like, is he just doing this?
It just shows them how meticulous he is in his editing style. And I really did appreciate that because that adds flavor.
And the soundtrack in this movie is far different from anything else he's used with Johnny Greenwood. Even though it's still Greenwood, I actually didn't even believe it at first because I was like,
this is different.
This is so much more melodic. And like, actually, I was like, this is...
It has a sense of grace to it.
It really does.
Which isn't really a staple of his soundtracks, like you said.
Yeah.
Any of his works. So
for sure. Ever since he started using Johnny Greenwood, because like Boogie Nights doesn't even have a soundtrack. It just has
pop music.
Songs. Yeah, from the 70s. But no, for sure. I love the soundtrack in this movie. I thought it was fantastic. And the sound design, that's a good point you bring up.
Costume design?
Costume design, for sure.
It's very hard to not do good costume design when you're...
in a movie about fashion.
In a movie about dressmaking.
Yeah. To that degree, too, I loved how Daniel Day-Lewis's character, like, even approached... I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis as a method actor, because it's one thing to just, like, play a character who's supposed to be a fashion designer.
Yeah.
Shout out to House of Gucci. Where it's like, how do they approach fashion?
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that somebody like Daniel Day-Lewis can look into that, where it's like, as his character because when you're breaking down a character like that, you have to think about like, okay, this is somebody who he stitched an entire dress, so he's paying attention to, seams and lines and individual threads, and he's looking for that stuff. And how he would just look at somebody, or how he would look at a piece of clothing, you could tell that Daniel Day-Lewis could tell to take that stuff into account.
Yeah.
And I really liked that about that.
He did a lot of research for this.
Oh, for sure.
In my research of him, I learned he did research of fashion.
Yeah.
He learned how to sew. He did the whole 9 yards.
Nice.
So
nice.
he was
into it.
Full into it. He full sended it.
Cinematography.
Yeah, we should mention that. Now, no credited cinematographer.
No credited cinematographer.
But there were camera operators
and
gaffers that
yes.
assisted Paul Thomas.
Yeah.
As far as like setups and lighting techniques and stuff like that.
Anderson, I think, said that it was, as opposed to there being explicitly no cinematographer whatsoever, him and the head gaffer would just say, what do we want to do here? And then they would just do it. So to a degree, maybe the gaffer was really the cinematographer. You might as well have just given him the credit. But like no credited cinematographer. And I think it shows, but I think it's well done.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I don't want to say surprisingly because...
It had a bit of that Punch Drunk Love feel where it was like maybe a little overexposed where everything was washed out whenever they were near a window.
It was a lot less technically sound,
quote unquote,
as far as him using dolly shots and him being tight with his camera work because he doesn't have actual cinematographer
this movie
to run
felt
it.
like it was filmed with an incredibly tiny camera.
Yeah. And because he likes to blow everything up since I think The Master.
Yeah.
When he
if you told me this was shot on 60 millimeter, I probably would have believed you.
It was shot on 35.
So, well, of course it was, yeah, but still, it felt
smaller.
Like, yeah, maybe it was the lens choices that they had throughout it, where it just felt like so many shots, actually, even like exteriors, felt like they were shot in like super close up or something like that.
See if I can find that.
It's not going to say on the Wikipedia page. You're going to have to go to friggin' AmericanCinematographer.com for that or something.
Let me just call Paul Thomas right now.
Yeah, let me just
Hey, what did you shoot your
Phantom Thread with?
Phantom Thread
what
on?
lens did you use?
Let's see here.
No, those are the technical. Oh wait, is it really?
Doesn't say. Panasonic Panaflex XL2 35. Doesn't say anything about the lens. Weird.
What can you do?
2 hours and 10 minutes.
Wait, we are still talking about cinematography.
Pretty short, which I appreciate.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
sure.
It was a nice, succinct story. To me, it never felt like it dragged that much. You obviously want to say otherwise.
Remember, I still didn't like this movie.
I mean, that's fine.
It definitely, no. What I didn't like about this movie was the story.
As far as what? You just didn't like the arena, or you didn't like the actual...
just didn't like...
narrative?
The plot and the characters, I would say. It just was not interesting to me whatsoever. And I think that's just... It definitely will come down to personal preference for you, because... I don't know. This is a type of period drama that just isn't that interesting to me.
I thought it was shot in the 1800s. Speaking of period drama. It's shot in 1950.
Well, it's also Britain in the 1950s. I don't know anything about that.
I was very surprised
British
when it
history,
was actually more recent than it was.
That's true. Because there's not like historical markers throughout it. I think even when they celebrate New Year's at one point, and nobody says what year it is.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
There's no real world events to kind of layer it on. It's just kind of set in a continual 1950s.
I didn't like... Part of it was probably because I didn't like the characters and I didn't understand her motivation. Yeah. But the plot itself, just a romance like this, is not up my alley whatsoever. Sure. Personally. So I was definitely bored throughout this movie. Yeah. You say it didn't drag, but it was a slog for me.
$447 million, excuse me, on a $35 million budget, so it made some money back, roughly.
Which I was surprised to see.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it was to Daniel Day-Lewis's.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It was like the push. Like, hey, you guys need to go see this. This is Daniel Day-Lewis's last show.
Okay, well, was it a good final performance? It was, because it's not like you hear Daniel Day-Lewis's final performance, you think he's gonna pull out like Jack Sparrow or something like that.
Yeah.
I think
No,
this.
It felt too subdued for a Daniel Day-Lewis final performance. I mean, while I enjoyed his performance, it wasn't anything. I think I would be a little disappointed if I had gone into it thinking like, I'm gonna watch this and this is gonna be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, definitely. If this movie was at any other point in Daniel Day-Lewis's career, people would just be like, that's just another good performance from him.
Right.
But as his final performance, quote unquote,
It wasn't really anything to write home
which,
about.
to be fair, whether or not this was planned beforehand to be his final performance or whether he just woke up one day and said, I want to retire, to me, it feels more like the latter. I don't think he went into this movie expecting this to be his final performance. I think he went out of this movie saying it was going to be his final performance.
You think so?
Yeah, at least insofar as the news was released, like after this movie was.
He announced his
completed.
retirement following the completion of the movie.
So that's what I mean. Is
Yeah.
I think after this movie was made, he said,
I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah. I'm glad I was right.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's okay. In terms of
Lincoln, I think, would have been a better
final movie,
final
you think?
movie as far as
Maybe.
final movie.
Yeah. A 3-hour long Lincoln impersonation.
But he would have been a character at least. It would have
Yeah.
been more
Yeah.
exciting, I guess, of a performance.
Maybe. I don't know.
Just my 2 cents.
Like I said, it's still a good performance. I think overall I would probably give this movie a C.
Like a B minus. Why? What is that? That was weird. A B minus. Yeah, I would give it like a B minus.
Mm.
That would be my get.
However, I would only, because I didn't like this movie that much, because I thought it's just not my kind of story, I would only really recommend it if you love Jane Austen period pieces, you would probably really like this movie. Like, I'm in terms of like the kind of romance, something like that, not in terms of the actual period the story takes place in. That's only really who I would recommend this for, because it's actually, I don't know, it just feels different from all his other movies. That it's like, even to other Paul Thomas Anderson fans, I don't know if I would recommend it.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents, personally. What about you?
I would recommend it. It's another one of those mid-afternoon movies where it's 3 p.m. You don't really have anything better to watch. It's like, yeah, I'll put this on.
I would say,
I'll go in and out and watch it.
I wouldn't say that. Even though I didn't like this movie, this still felt like a sit down and enjoy your evening kind of movie.
Yeah, I get. Okay, this is more of a Redbox Saturday night kind of movie.
Yeah.
Where you get a Redbox movie, you go home, watch it with your family, or your wife, significant other, whoever. And yeah, I would say that. All right,
I would agree.
Should we talk about Licorice Pizza
Licorice
for like
Pizza.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Setting it up.
What we know about it?
What we do know about is it starts Alana Haim, Cooper Hoffman, Sean Penn, Tom Waits, Bradley Cooper, Benny Safdie.
Only select theaters.
So select theaters this weekend. It will go wide Christmas Day. Interesting
Yikes.
decision.
Do you remember what it was previously? It was supposed to be wide release.
I believed it was supposed to be wide release because I even think the trailer says wide release or being released November 26th.
Watch us just be wrong. Just be idiots.
I remember
We just
specifically
didn't
looking
remember
up.
this entire time.
I remember specifically looking it up and it's saying November 26th.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything about a limited release at all, which you would think would be like in big bold letters, whether it's on IMDb or Fandango. Like, hey, this is gonna be limited. So I don't know if that was a late decision. I don't know if that was just me not doing my research super duper properly. But Johnny Greenwood's coming back. No Robert Elswit though.
No.
It'll be shot by Michael Bauman, who also shot.
Wait, that guy.
He was
the cinematographer for. He was the gaffer.
Cinematographer
for Phantom Thread.
For Phantom Thread.
So there you go. He's moving up in the world.
So we'll get a lot of interesting. This poster though is. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this poster. It's not the best poster. I'll say
it's
that
not.
much.
Doesn't tell you anything about the movie at all.
The trailer though.
You loved it.
I love the trailer. The trailer was the only reason I was actually excited to watch this movie.
Which is funny
because I
because
had never heard of this movie before.
I saw the trailer and I was like, this doesn't look that interesting. And it said Paul Thomas Anderson. And I was like, oh no.
I'll be there opening day.
I was like, I have to see it now.
It's set in the 70s in San Fernando Valley.
Knowing Paul Thomas Anderson's like that's how he grew up. I think this is going to be like just a personal. I say this is going to be a personal picture for him because all of his movies have been personal pictures for him. But I think this one is like basically him probably adapting his childhood or something like that.
It'll be. I hate to do this comparison, but it'll be. I'm predicting something like Dazed, where Linklater is taking his high school days and adapting it into
most likely
movie screen.
Yeah,
I think there will be more pizzazz to it than Days for sure, and it's already getting Oscar buzz. So there's some better elements than the typical high school.
Yeah, I would be interested because I think Paul Thomas Anderson has entered the Spielberg stage of his career.
You think?
He at least he did well with There Will Be Blood, and everything after that has just been whatever he's felt like. Or maybe he did well with, Magnolia. You could go as far back as that movie. But I think he's at the stage where he makes whatever he feels like making, and the people who are going to watch it will watch it. And, his name carries enough weight with it.
Yeah.
So the only thing I would be interested to see then is in his early stages of his career, it was always about the style of the movie, right? And we talked about that a lot when we talked about Boogie Nights and Magnolia. Those movies have distinct, even if you don't even like the story of those movies,
they have distinct aesthetics.
They have distinct aesthetics, and just stylistically, how they're even just shot and filmed is just like that in of itself carries more weight than even like the story or the acting in the movies. You might argue style over substance, but nevertheless, I would love to see him return to something like that. I would love to see him bring back out the Robert Altman influence and do a something like that for sure. I don't think he will. And judging by the trailers, I don't think he will. But, dude, freaking Tom Waits is in this movie.
Our boy's back.
That's
the boy is back.
John C. Reilly.
He's back.
And the lead actor, Cooper Hoffman. Son of Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes.
So, who said nepotism is alive in Hollywood?
Nepotism is still alive in Hollywood. Don't worry. Don't worry, folks.
Yeah.
The Haim girl shot some of her... They shot the band's... He shot the band's music videos. Excuse me.
Oh, nice.
I learned how to talk. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that. I don't listen to their music, so I did not know that.
I don't as well, so... But that was pretty cool.
Well, he shot music videos for Radiohead, and Johnny Greenwood does the music, so there you go.
So that's how she came to be into the lead role. $40 million budget. I think that's interesting.
Pretty low.
Are we sure about that?
How much was Phantom Thread?
Considering all of his other movies are expensive. I mean, Phantom Thread was 35.
Wow.
But Phantom Thread is also a fashion period piece. This is a
true
high school drama.
So higher than what you would expect.
Set in the 70s. A little higher than I expected.
A lot of that might be...
You think it's Sean Penn and Bradley Cooper taking up half of that?
No, it's definitely Tom Waits taking up half of that. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see it. I mean, maybe to a degree, he's gonna do some like crazy
Stunts.
because like Boogie Nights didn't really have like stunts, but they had spectacle.
Yeah,
I
there
feel
was
like-
a lot of there was big sets on Boogie Nights.
Yeah, and I feel like Licorice Pizza, he might be doing a little bit of that. I expect it to have that same feeling, is what I mean. Like not stunts, but like set pieces. That's what I think.
Boogie Nights had a $15 million budget. It seems about right
For the time period.
that kind of movie.
Yeah,
And for
that's not adjusted for inflation.
for the late 90s.
Yeah, that's crazy though. Jeez.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Are you excited?
I am pretty excited.
I'm nervous.
I am very, very excited after going through and watching all these movies and seeing like his evolution, seeing where else he can go into his career. It'll be I won't consider myself the biggest Paul Thomas Anderson fan. I definitely have gripes with some of, if not all of his movies. But
Understandable.
Yeah, I don't know. He just makes classy movies and he makes good, solid movies that are you will find something to enjoy in each of his movies. I'll say that much. Unless it's Magnolia.
It's been really interesting to watch stylistically how he's progressed.
Yeah,
From
yeah.
his very early movies, which were just basically Robert Altman love pieces.
Yeah.
To Robert Altman, that is. To somewhere around Punch Drunk Love. I think that movie really probably opened up how he viewed his own style. Because I think that movie has a lot more stylistically in common with what he's doing now with Phantom Thread and Inherent Vice.
Oh, yeah.
Than There Will Be Blood or The Master.
Sure.
So, yeah, it'll be
I'm also
interesting.
really interested to see what he does with two unknown actors.
Mm-hmm.
It will be interesting to see because, his whole career, he's had a leading guy or gal who's been at least a
big name.
leading
Yeah.
actor before. And here he has two unknowns. Obviously, one is
Philip Seymour
Hoffman's son. So they have a little bit of a connection there. And, obviously the Haim sister, they work together as well. But it's a lot different going from, hey, I know you because I work with your dad, and hey, I know you because I shoot your music videos, and working on a full-length feature.
And now you have to be in a movie.
And you actually have to have a performance and play a character.
Yeah.
So,
I've said it multiple times on the show. What separates good directors from bad directors is actors.
yeah. Casting is 90. What do they say? Casting is 90% of the directing, or whatever that quote is.
Justin Timberlake and In Time is not Justin Timberlake a Social Network.
So yeah, that I think that's what I'm most excited for, is just to see him working with unknown.
I am most excited to just see stylistically what he does with this movie.
Yeah.
For me personally, I don't know, man. That looks like neon lights to me. I think cinematography of this is going to be 10 out of 10.
Yeah, boy.
Is this cyberpunk?
God damn it. All right. Any last words before we head out of here?
No.
Cool. We're out of here. Have a good night. See you guys next week. Next week we're talking Harry Potter. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, yeah.
20th anniversary. And then the week after that, we're talking World War II. So, yeah, we're going to have a busy December. So,
all the Harry Potter movies, by the way. Not just like, we're not doing one at a time.
No. We're not
doing all of them at once.
Yeah, we can't do a whole series again.
No. We physically do not have time to watch all those movies.
So, yeah, we're going to talk about all the movies. So, see you guys next week talking Harry Potter.